The one thing to emerge in Australian politics in the last several days is that almost more than ever, both Labor and the government are tying themselves in knots over energy policy and in particular coal. But the electorate are now smarter than they were several years ago. They can smell hypocrisy a mile off. Back in November, we had a sweltering heat wave. Coal supplied more than 80% of New South Wales's power needs. Matt Keane, the New South Wales Energy Minister, has been invited onto this program. He's declined. He said he wants to speak to me off air first. Good luck for that. But he's constantly talked down coal and has declared victory over vested interests of coal barons, even though the majority of energy used in Australia during peak demand is generated by coal. Then, of course, you've got the massive coal export earnings. Our second biggest export, 70 billion. And as you've heard me say a million times, only 3 words are needed to sum up responsible energy policy. It must be available, reliable and affordable. Why would Germany be opening a brand new coal-fired power plant last year? Japan has 20 in the works. Before COVID, India was planning on increasing its coal-fired electricity generation by almost a quarter in 3 years. Well, let's go back to the federal parliament yesterday, where Labor and the coalition in the Senate proved that their support for coal-fired power is nothing but fakery. Whatever happened to the Scott Morrison, by the way, who brought a lump of coal into the chamber during question time 4 years ago in February 2017? Was that another marketing ploy? Yesterday, the One Nation Senator Malcolm Roberts introduced a motion calling on the Morrison government to commit to building a coal-fired power station in the Hunter region. The Liberal Party and the National Party and the Labor Party all opposed the motion to build a coal-fired power station in the Hunter region. As the One Nation candidate for Hunter, the coal miner Stuart Bonds, reminded us the other night, 3 out of 5 households in the Hunter rely economically, directly or indirectly, on the coal mining industry. Those who live in the electorate of Hunter need to know that the National Party and the Labor Party are speaking with forked tongue. How grave is this hypocrisy? Well, the same National Party in New South Wales made a big song and dance a week ago about releasing a report entitled, quote, Australian Manufacturing 2035. On page 18 of the report, it says this, quote, given that the New South Wales government has recently announced plans to shut 8,520 megawatts of coal-fired power, representing 70% of the electricity of New South Wales, the government should support a new coal-fired power station in the Hunter Valley. This would use the world's best and cleanest thermal coal. It would be better for the environment, for more Australian coal to be used to manufacture goods in Australia, instead of Australians importing manufactured goods from countries that use lower quality coal. The author of the motion, Senator Malcolm Roberts, joins us live from Canberra. Malcolm Roberts, what is going on?
Well, what you see going on, Alan, is exactly what you saw with Joel Fitzgibbon on Monday night. You asked him simple, basic questions. He was hopping all over the joint. The Nationals now come out and make a clear statement. In fact, Matt Canavan's tweet last year, after he visited Mandalong, said exactly the words that we have used in our motion yesterday. Exactly Matt's words. And then Matt and the Nats abandoned that policy. They came out with a policy just a few weeks ago, last month. Now it's abandoned. And so what we've seen is exactly what you said. Complete confusion, duplicity, contradictions, hypocrisy in the National Party, the Liberal Party, the Labor Party. The only one that's consistent is us in support of coal, but the Greens are consistent in demonising coal with lies.
And yet
so
the Labor Party the Labor Party in the seat of Hunter preferenced the Greens and put One Nation last, and your One Nation candidate got a 21% swing, and yet the Labor Party say they want to back the worker in the Hunter Valley. How the hell are you backing the worker when you're giving preference to the Greens?
Exactly. And so what does Joel Fitzgibbon come up with? Once the Nationals came out with their policy, what used to be their policy until yesterday, he said, well, he'll back a coal-fired power station too. But he added this, Alan, with carbon dioxide sequestration, which blows the costs out of the water, and the coal-fired power station will never exist. That's what Scott Morrison is doing. That's what the Nationals are doing. That's what the Labor Party is doing. They're saying one thing and trying to placate the others. Murray Watt has just been appointed Queensland Resources spokesman for the Labor Party, and he's saying, we want to export coal, but you can't use it in our country.
Yeah,
I mean, this is exporting jobs. This is exporting manufacturing jobs, agricultural jobs overseas, and we're subsidising the destruction of our electricity sector in this country.
Absolutely right. And then Scott Morrison says he wants to talk about gas in the Hunter Valley. So is a coalition government going to stand by and allow Australia's coal-fired generation to be retired by 2040. Now, somewhere down there on the line, I think I have Matt Canavan. Matt, where are you? Let's bring Matt in. Matt, what do you make of all of this? Why did the National Party yesterday vote against this motion?
Well, Alan, it's a little inside the beltway, all this stuff, but these motions in the Senate have about the legislative equivalence of me jumping onto the top of the Sydney Harbour Bridge and yelling at the top of my voice. They don't do anything. They do absolutely nothing. So if this piece of paper that Malcolm moved in the Senate on Tuesday, I think, had it passed and got majority support, it would have meant absolutely nothing. Now, I understand that because Malcolm Roberts is a senator from a minor party and he doesn't sit in the government party room and he can't have any influence over policy, that he has to run stunts like this to get on, but it doesn't deliver outcomes. And what I think we need to do in this country is actually focus on outcomes. Yes, I support the building of a...
But Matt, sorry to interrupt you here.
But a motion, the Parliament's not going to change that.
But sorry to interrupt you. The National Party did say that the government should support a new coal-fired power station in the Hunter Valley that would use the world's best and cleanest thermal coal. Now, this is what the National Party report said on page 18, released a week ago. How then can they vote against a motion by anybody that we should build a coal-fired power station in that valley?
Because it's a political stunt, Alan. It's a political stunt, and it's all about trying to divide people in the Senate. I don't want to play political. I'm not down here in Canberra to play political games.
No,
I'm not interested in playing Malcolm's games. I'm interested in delivering the cheap power.
But Matt, you're smart. So is this report a political stunt then? Because obviously it doesn't mean what it says.
No,
they're wanting a coal-fired power station in the Hunter Valley. The Nationals vote against a coal-fired power station in Canberra. Malcolm Roberts. Go on.
What this report about, Alan, is putting a comprehensive plan together to build manufacturing in this country. Now, the next steps for us is to develop an election policy which will take to the election for manufacturing. An election policy that will actually be implemented if a coalition party was re-elected. I mean, I like Malcolm. He's a good bloke. But the reality is, however many people vote for Malcolm, his policies, the policies One Nation take to the election,
yeah, but that's not the point,
policy.
Matt.
They don't become
Matt,
laws. They don't become laws. Well, that is the point, Alan, because you don't create anything if you don't do that.
No, but Matt, the point is this. Simply, 8,520 megawatts of power are going to be retired by the closure of Liddell. The National Party has said we should build a coal-fired power station. You have said that the argument to build a gas-fired power plant by Scott Morrison is ridiculous and too expensive to entertain. So how are we going to replace 8,520 megawatts of power in the Hunter Valley?
Yeah, look, just to be clear, the 8,500 megawatts is 4 power stations. Liddell is about 1,600 megawatts of that. It's a big, big problem for our country that I do think we should be looking at a coal-fired power station, the Hunter. But instead of, the problem here, Alan, if you let me finish, the problem here is, Malcolm obviously wants to support that as well. But instead of trying to work together to deliver that outcome, One Nation playing political games in the Senate to divide the very people up who actually support that policy.
Well, let's hear Malcolm Roberts.
What we should be doing, right? We should be actually working together to achieve this. But Malcolm's not interested in outcomes. He's interested in playing political stunts.
Well, Matt, I'm a great admirer of yours, but Malcolm made a very sensible observation. Do you want to build a coal-fired power station in the Hunter Valley, don't you? You said you do, but yesterday they voted against it. Malcolm Roberts.
Well, okay.
Malcolm?
Well, Alan, minor parties have a place in the Parliament, and we're a growing party. Now, let's face it. There's no point in voting for the Nationals because they're in Cabinet when they don't do anything. The Nationals talk like One Nation but vote like the Greens. That's repeated because they follow the policies of their woke people in the Liberal Party. Now, I'll make a very important point here, Alan. There are many, many sceptics in the Liberal Party and the National Party who don't believe this stuff on carbon dioxide. And there are significant numbers of senators in the Labor Party who don't believe this. I frequently get pats on the back from the Nationals, from the Liberals and from Labor Party senators saying, keep going, mate. We can't do it because our party shut down to that. Keep going. We're destroying this country. Keep going. That's the reality. And so the core issue here is one of governance. It doesn't matter how intelligent people are, Alan. What matters is the heart. It's the strength of character.
Well, let's go back
it's
to
the
Matt
consistency.
Canavan.
It's the integrity.
Yeah. Let's go back to Matt. Matt, it's either coal or gas. And you made the very valid point that the notion of a gas-fired power plant is South Australia revisited. an absolute mess, energy prices through the roof. I know Scott Morrison said he wants a gas-fired power plant. So if it's not a gas-fired power plant, it's got to be a coal-fired power plant. When can we trust the National Party to say we will build a coal-fired power plant in the Hunter Valley?
Well, look, I'm not the leader of the Nationals Party, Alan. I'm doing my bit to push for that outcome. We've obviously got to do it, to deliver it. We've got to convince, force, cajole, whatever means necessary, a government to back it and get behind it. We can all talk about it here on your show, but that doesn't create any electrons. So that's what we've got to do. We've got to force a situation. We've got to force a political compromise or outcome that delivers that result. I agree with what you said there before. New South Wales imports almost all of its gas. It has the world's best thermal coal basin in the Hunter Valley. We are facing the shutdown of almost 70% of New South Wales electricity in the next 15 years. So why shouldn't we use the world's best thermal coal here in Australia rather than send it overseas and then buy stuff in Kmart and Big W that's been made from that coal?
Because the Liberals and Nationals are scared.
Look, Malcolm, there's no doubt, right? I mean, there's no doubt that I have disagreements with people in my party. But the way to get through that is to take up the argument, not run political stunts in the Senate, actually trying to engage in a political process which will deliver that outcome for people and people's real jobs. I mean, that's what I did with the Adani mine and delivered those jobs. You can shout and scream as much as you want here, but you've got to deliver outcomes.
But Matt, I'll just say this to you. I mean, don't get a swelled head here, but this bloke has ability, Matt Canavan, and Scott Morrison got rid of him. And he's out of the decision.
Didn't get rid of him. Scott didn't get rid of me. That's not right.
No, well, McCormack got rid of you, but Scott Morrison could have demanded you be back in the cabinet, and you're not. Now, at the end of the day, you look at the polls on Tuesday, Monday, 50-50. They're a Labor dead set even, dead heat with the coalition. Morrison's been on television all year. It's these sorts of things that alienate the voter. And I'm telling you, there's an enormous electoral fallout. What we're saying here tonight is going to millions of people on social media. And they've heard the debate on both sides. And at the end of the day, they say, well, I'm sorry, I don't know what this government stands for. It speaks with forked tongue. It says it wants a coal-fired power plant. We've heard that very smart Matt Canavan said we want it in the Hunter Valley. They're given a chance to put their hands up and say yes in the government, in the parliament, and they don't. So I think there are electoral consequences for people playing these sorts of games, and those consequences, I think, are going to be felt by the government. We've run out of time. Matt, it's good to talk to you, and I know you've had a tough week, so thank you for joining us. My thoughts are with you and your family. And Malcolm Roberts, thank you for your time.
No worries.
You're welcome, Alan.
Thanks, mate.
Pleasure.
See you, mate.